Hi everybody, my name's Ryan. This is Roll for Initiative, and are you looking for a way to make things a little more interesting in your fights and give your players some long-lasting repercussions of the battle? Well, then I think you're really going to enjoy some of these monsters that do ability drain on this episode of Monster Mash. Roll for Initiative. Sometimes as a DM, you're looking for ways to make things a little bit more interesting and not just have it be another slugfest between your players and the monsters that you choose. There's lots of different ways of going about this, having intelligent monsters, picking legendary monsters, playing with the numbers or the makeup of the different types of creatures that you throw at the party. One of the ways that I like to do this is by taking things that can do ability damage. Now this has been around in Dungeons & Dragons for quite a while. It used to be part of level drain, which they've done away with, and I can kind of understand why. We'll look at level drain in a little bit, but the first thing that I want to look at from 5th edition is the Shadow. The Shadow can directly lower the strength of any of your players. It's pretty great. On a hit, the Shadow's already doing 2d6 plus 2. Maybe not a lot, but a decent chunk of hit points. But it's also lowering the strength score of the character by 1d4. So if you've got your fighters or your barbarians or something like that, this can really start to affect how well they can do in the fight. On top of affecting the flow of the fight and how much damage they're putting out, if any character's strength is reduced to 0, they die. Think of it as the body doesn't even have enough strength to keep the heart pumping or the muscles moving or what have you. But the character is dead. As well as the fact if it is a non-evil character, another shadow monster is born from the corpse. So it's this really creepy way that the shadows can reproduce themselves. If your party does survive this, it could have some long-lasting effects. If they're ambushed by the shadows in the middle of their dungeon crawl, or the shadows are a part of a larger force, a larger battle that's happening, if they don't have time to rest, they have to deal with the fact that they're all a lot weaker until they can carve out the time and find someplace safe to finish an uninterrupted, short or long rest. So if you want to go after your character's strength scores, take a look at the Shadow. Next up we have the Intellect Devourer. Now these look pretty creepy. They're giant four-legged brains that usually are associated with the Illithid and the Underdark. They're able to use telepathy and speak deep speech. What makes them such a challenge isn't the amount of damage they can put out. It's not a whole lot. It's the fact that when they hit, characters must make an intelligence check, and if they fail, they have their intelligence lowered. You roll 3d6. If the score is higher than their intelligence score, their intelligence is reduced to 0. That in and of itself doesn't kill the character. It incapacitates them. It's what the Intellect Devourer does on its next turn that gets really nasty. With anyone that's incapacitated, the Intellect Devourer can teleport inside of the character's skull, eat its brain, and then use the body like a puppet. It has complete control over the body, all of its movements, all of its attack, everything. He can turn around and start using the meat puppet of this character against the rest of the party. Now, a wish spell that restores the brain or reducing the hit points to 0, that can make the Intellect Devourer flee, but unless you found some way of restoring the brain, like I said with a wish spell or something like that, of the character dies within 6 seconds. So, I mean, death is certainly a long-lasting thing, and you could probably find an interesting way to complicate things if they are able to take the corpse to a priest or a cleric or some sort of healer. But even without its brain, bringing it back might have some special challenges in and of itself. The Monster Manual doesn't specifically say how to restore the lost points. It just says that they're reduced to 0 and the character's incapacitated until it gets at least 1 intelligent point back. Now maybe that's a greater restoration or even a lesser restoration. It's up to you to take a look at the spells and figure out how to do that. But again, it's a pretty impactful way to change things up for the makeup of your party. The last group of monsters that can do ability drains are the specters, incubus and succubus, vampires, wraiths, and wights. Now these are all able to do life drain. The flavor of each one can probably be a little bit different, but ultimately it's lowering not only the current hit points for the character, but their max hit points. So they're not able to heal back up to where they were. This certainly makes your players a lot squishier as they move forward, but also if any character's max hit points are reduced to 0, again, that character is dead. And there's some pretty fun things that happen, specifically like with a vampire. If a character's hit points are reduced to 0 by a vampire bite, they can then be buried in the earth that the vampire is from, and they themselves come back in a vampiric form, which that could have some long-lasting effects like turning your entire party into vampires. It'd certainly be something interesting and some very new player development to happen, either if they continue with those characters or the potential of running into a past player character as a vampiric NPC. Now, in previous iterations of Dungeons & Dragons, there used to be something called level drain. It was really rough, and I understand why they got rid of it. It was an attack on your experience points. It did exactly what the name says. It lowered the character level. If you were a level 9 fighter and you were hit with level drain, all of a sudden you became a level 8 fighter, with only half the experience points needed to reach back to level 9. Now with that, you immediately suffered negatives to all of your attacks and saving throws, to your armor class. You would lose hit points and hit dice, you would lose spells, you could lose abilities, you could lose stat modifications. It was something that was really damaging to the character, but I also think that it was damaging to the morale of the party. Now I understand what they were going for, and I think it was really effective in one way. It was supposed to be a way of using some storytelling and some mechanics to show just how much the character had changed because of this harrowing fight. They may have survived, but they're not effective anymore, or they're less effective. They doubt themselves. They think, well, what could I have done differently? They can't stand up to quite so much punishment. They're not able to do all of the things that they used to be able to do until they get over it. And by get over it, it means level back up to where they used to be. It was probably pretty effective. I've had characters hit with it before, and while it may have intended to help build some storytelling, I'm glad to see it go. I think that it's really just, it made things tough for the players, and it felt like a setback, not for the character, but for the person playing it. Now I just have to continue working to get back to where I was. I think that there's some really cool ways that you can use the 5th edition rules to recreate that in a way that's maybe a little healthier for the overall attitude of the party. So there you go. We've got the Shadow, we've got the Intellect Devourer, Incubus, Succubus, Vampires, Wights, Wraiths, Shades, all of these really cool things that not only can cut up the party pretty bad, but hurt their abilities to be as effective and make them deal with things a little bit differently as they move forward and plan for their future fights. Did I miss anything? Are there some other creatures that do ability drains that you really like? Do you like the way that ability drain has been done in the past? Do you still use level drain or wish that 5th edition would bring it back? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I want to say thanks to everybody who watches our videos and helps spread the word. You're really cool for doing that, and you're part of the reason why we're able to keep making videos. I want to give a very special thanks to all of our patrons on Patreon, especially Lainey Ambrose Craft, Will Holmes, RV Bassa, and Sean Hillman. If you want, hop on over. It's patreon.com/roll4initiative. See some of the perks that we have out there and maybe choose to become a patron and join us on our campaign. That would be really cool of you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the little bell if you want to get a notification every time we have a new video. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time on Roll for Initiative.